Joining us today is Stephen Hermann, a globally respected medium, teacher, and author. With decades of experience and more than 10,000 students trained under him, Steve's work has been featured internationally in media and on platforms like Associated Press. His best selling books are Mediumship Mastery and Mediumship Mastery 2, and there's another one which I think Steve can let us know later. And once we are done, I will be putting the links of the books down below in the description box. You all can see. And I like his work, and he is working a lot for the spiritual community worldwide. He travels a lot. He teaches a lot of students worldwide, I would say. And we will expect to see him sometime in India too. And we are very lucky to have him. So, welcome, Steve.
Well, I'm really happy to be here. I'm really excited.
Wow. Yeah. So, I think as we roll on, I think you can tell us about your starting with your journey. We would really love to hear, how has your journey in the context of mediumship unfolded? Where it started? What was the starting point, or where it really felt like connecting with mediumship?
Well, I've always been open to the spirit world. So the first time the spirit world communicated with me was when I was 2 years old, which is
Okay.
really normal. Everybody has psychic ability,
Yes.
and we're an eternal spirit. So with these physical bodies, and we also have a subtle body, and we have subtle senses. And
Yeah.
when you kick the bucket, you still exist, right? You continue, and you can communicate with people telepathically, with people who are in this physical world. So sometimes mediums will put themselves on some kind of pedestal, like they have some type of extraordinary power, higher than everyone else and so advanced. But really, everybody has this mediumship ability. It's just like art or music. Even if maybe you don't feel you're that creative, if you take classes, right, in a structured educational environment, you can really develop your technical skill as an artist. And mediumship's the same type of thing. I mean, the power comes from God.
Yes.
However, if someone puts the energy in, they can learn how to work with it, right? How to cultivate that ability, and most importantly, how to help other people. So I've always really been open to it, but then I've done a lot of training. I'm still a student, and it's really, you never stop growing with it. You never
Yes.
stop expanding, and I think it's really awesome. So the more that people get into it on a personal level, it will enrich you, but it will also help you to be able to help other people too.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And I would like to know, how do you feel? Like, what is the difference for you between spirituality and mediumship? Because here, like, why am I asking you this? Because mediumship has been quite prominent in the US for a long time. But if I talk to my audience in India, it is now gaining a lot of, you can say, people are noticing it now. People are going for it now. So I would like, but still, there are many questions.
Yeah, well, with spirituality is really the most important thing, because we're eternal. We're eternal spirit souls, and if you read Bhagavad Gita, I try to read Bhagavad Gita every day. I even chant the slokas in Sanskrit, and all of that explains, right, what the nature of the soul, right, that we're eternal, and our relationship with God. And what does yoga mean? It means to connect with God. So in India, which is really nice, if we go into the traditional Vedic and yogic teachings, there's all these different processes to get back to God, to connect with God. So mediumship doesn't necessarily get anyone back to God. However, if someone reads a lot of scripture, they could read the Bible, they could read Bhagavad Gita, and maybe they're just very caught up in their intellect. They don't really have any type of conception. And sometimes people, they're what we call a doubting Thomas, right? They just don't believe, oh, this just couldn't exist. So you can hear the truth from people, you can read it in a book, but you can still have doubts. So with mediumship, what's really good about it, and it's all very scientific, it's like laboratory work. You read about the theory, and then you experiment And what takes place? Well, you have results, which of course can vary, but with mediumship, you can learn about it. You can consult different mediums, go to different sessions, and there's
Yes.
different types of mediumship, and information will come through from the spirit world. That how did the medium know that? And they didn't read your Facebook page or investigate you. It's not just, sometimes someone's skeptical. They'll say, oh, a medium, they just look at someone's body language or they're cold reading, or maybe they research. Now, there's people who are completely bogus mediums,
Yes.
who are
Yes.
frauds, who cheat people, who do things like this. However, the spirit world, they organize this, they orchestrate. So they'll come through with information. Maybe you don't understand any of it. And then you go home, you speak to your husband or your wife, and they go, oh my gosh, that was my uncle, and you just didn't know it. You see, so you're going to get evidential information that,
Yes.
how did that take place? So it actually will help someone have an understanding that there's more than just this physical world. Because we're conditioned, right? We're in these physical bodies, we have physical senses, and they're limited. They're really good for this material world. Of course, as someone ages, what happens? Their hearing, their vision diminishes, this type
Yes.
of thing.
Yeah.
So physical senses are great, but the psychic senses are there, right? Because interpenetrating this physical body is our
Mm.
subtle body. And
Yeah.
in the spirit realm, it's subtle. It's less dense than the physical world, and it's all around us. It interpenetrates our physical dimension, and they can communicate with us mind to mind. And how do we do
Yes.
this? Well, we have to learn to raise our vibration up. But then the other thing is learning to get the analytical mind out of the way, so our minds are very receptive, and then they can
Mhm.
impress our mind. They can put thoughts into our mind and everything. So
Yes.
that's what mental mediumship involves. A
Yes.
medium is just an intermediary for the spirit world to work through.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. And I have been, seeing some people where they often use that or say that they're gifted. So feels very strange to me, that why do they call it that they're gifted or
Because
they're,
they have a big ego.
yeah.
And the
Yes.
thing is when, people have this idea, oh, I'm going to develop clairvoyance, that
Yeah.
by doing so somehow makes you spiritual. And
Yes.
really, you can be a total jerk and be a medium.
I
It doesn't
agree
mean you're
with that.
evolved at all.
Yeah.
Now, with mental mediumship, and mental mediumship is the mind to mind communication. There's different phases, there's different types of it, but some of those clairvoyant, right? They're able to see the spirits, or clairaudient, they can hear, clairsentient, right? They can sense and feel.
Right.
And all of that, I mean, it's experienced subjectively by the medium using their intuitive abilities, but the medium's mentality, their emotions, their uh, uh, intellectual ability, all of those things come and can compound, right? Because like attracts like. And so if someone's really worked on themselves spiritually,
Yeah.
let's just say they've only worked on themselves intellectually, they're really intelligent, they've studied a lot, they have a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Well, all of that helps to attract higher minds to work with you, right? Because we're working with telepathic mind to mind communication. So
Right.
your spirituality is really, really, really important. However, just because someone can see spirits
Mm.
or they have some psychic power, that doesn't make them extraordinary, like I said, and it really doesn't make them spiritual at all. Spirituality is your relationship, your devotion to God, your relationship with God, and it's going to come out with how you interact, treat other people,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
other souls here in this material world, and your morals, your ethics, all those things. So just because someone is developed as a medium doesn't mean that they've developed their personal character or their
Exactly.
spirituality. And that's a lot of work. It doesn't just happen,
Yeah.
if you go to a workshop on a Saturday.
Okay. All right. So, what I want to ask you is like in mediumship, mostly it's like we always say that we are connecting to the loved ones in heaven and to the spirit. We are bringing in evidences, telling their loved ones here in the physical how they are and all. So it's connecting. But I think personally that it is more than connecting. That is not just the communication is not the only thing. So what is your take? Like, what do you think about
Well, sometimes people. Now, I know you're going to interview a lot of different mediums for this. People mediums from different countries, and sometimes there's a dogma, and the dogma, and this is within the spiritualist movement. And for those of you who are in India who don't know a lot about the spiritualist movement, it started as a religious movement in upstate New York in the U.S. back in 1848, and it
it? Okay.
spread to England, then it went to continental Europe, and then it went worldwide. In fact, if you go back to the 1920s into the 1950s or even the 60s,
Okay.
V.D. Rishi, and he was in the Chapati section of Bombay, and he wrote a number of, he had his own publication he put out, but he started the Indian Spiritualist Society. And he and his wife was a medium. I remember I was doing some work in India. Now, she was living in Pune at the time. I wasn't able to visit her, but
Okay.
she was still around. She was quite elder. This is back in like 1992, 93, around that time. And he preached. He went and taught, spiritualism all over India, and he went to a lot of international congresses, in France and in England. He had seances, he had sessions with a lot of the leading mediums back then, and he did much to bring the understandings of spiritualism to India. And so I'm not sure if you can get his books anymore in India. I think they're out of print, but they
Yeah.
definitely need to be reprinted. They're really, 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 really good. His first wife passed to spirit. Her name was Radha, and he was really just distraught. He was completely just disturbed by this, and
Okay.
she communicated with him, and it led him to reading about the subject, studying the subject, and actually developing, his abilities. And he was someone who's highly educated and did much to promote spiritualism. But spiritualism has a dogma sometimes that the purpose of mediumship is to prove survival,
Yeah.
to provide evidence. So I've kind of gone off on a tangent when I'm answering your question, but there's way more to mediumship than just proving survival. But you're going to
Absolutely.
run into mediums who think differently than me. That's just the purpose of mediumship. So if you're a skeptic, if you're an atheist,
Yeah.
as I said earlier, you
Yeah.
have that come through. It really solidifies any doubt, pushes aside any doubt and solidifies, okay, this is reality. It can change someone's whole life that way. However, once you get evidence, the big thing is how can you improve yourself? How can you grow? Right? How
Exactly.
can you evolve as an individual? Because that's what really matters. So that's just the first step. Understanding you're not your body, right? There's that God exists, that there's these higher levels. There's these other dimensions that you can go in that you can, that
Yeah.
that are inhabited in this unseen world, right? And you can develop your abilities and communicate.
Yeah.
But spiritualism and the process of mediumship, it's something that's really pretty deep when you really get into it. It's not
Absolutely.
like in a box, which sometimes people do that. They
Yeah.
sort of limit it, and it can become dogmatic. But it's not supposed to be that way. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Really, I have the same opinion, but I always and often ask this question. And you're right. A lot of people just limit it to this thing. They don't
Yeah,
see beyond that.
yeah, and it's like with like mediums. Okay, so when typically someone goes to a class for mediumship, let's say you go to the UK and you go to Arthur Finley Spiritualist College, right, in
Yeah.
Stansted, which is quite popular. People go there.
Yeah.
Usually, like a lot of times, the programs are like for a week. But although there's different aspects of mediumship, it's very traditional spiritualist mediumship, and the focus will all be on bringing through survival information.
Yes.
And some mediums, that's all they're going to do. They feel that's their purpose. Now, that's not necessarily wrong because that's a really good thing and it does serve a purpose. However, you can have a session, and the spirits may give you information about that person, even past, human incarnations they've had. Let's
Yes.
just say, for example, you've got certain patterns of how you think or behavior, and it's not something from your in upbringing, from when you were little. It's nothing to do with your family, your environment growing up. It's stuff that you came in here with.
Yeah.
And we see this. Sometimes people have patterns that really hold them back, right? They're dysfunctional. And they go to a therapist. The therapist isn't going to find any cause, any relation to things. They wouldn't really know about about how to handle the situation. So we see that people bring in baggage, right? We bring in tendencies that we've acquired. And so karmically, we come into this life, and some things we bring, some qualities are really good. Like, let's say, for example, someone's really spent a lot of time meditating and praying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they bring that in, and the chances are they're going to really be drawn to spirituality and God when they're in this life. But you also have people who just, perhaps they've suffered certain things.
Mm-hmm.
They have certain hang-ups that they bring in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the higher spirits, they can actually tell you as a medium, they can provide information about someone's soul history. And that
Mm-hmm.
information can really help a person clear things up. You can also receive like higher teachings, higher philosophy. You can receive practical guidance and spiritual guidance that's really going to help a person. And it's not like fortune telling, oh, you're going to meet a man with a gold tooth next week. You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely.
next week you're going to go and you're going to have a masala dosa, and for dinner, or you need to wear this color sweater. It's not about predicting the future per se, although they can do that, or telling the future, or giving people really mundane advice. It's to actually help elevate people. That's
Yeah.
that's that's the whole idea behind it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Absolutely. And see, I feel that it is not just the communication, like you said, but I feel when I do mediumship readings, personally, I can say that there's a lot of healing aspect also involved. Uh,
Yeah, it's all about healing and love. That's the
so
big thing.
because I feel it myself that every time I connect, it gives a very soothing effect, like a very good feeling that you feel the spirit is connected and the people here who in the physical are feeling better. So, yes, I
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Well, the thing is, let's say I was having a reading with you, your energy field would be blended with mine, and so there's this
Yes,
higher vibration that works
yes,
through you, and it touches, right?
yes.
It touches the individual, the recipient who's in front of you, and it transforms them, even if they're not consciously aware of it.
Yeah,
So,
I
the
agree.
words you're saying, it may be really good guidance, it may be really good information, which can be very healing too, depending on what
Yeah,
it is. But it's the energy that comes through too, and it's really awesome. So there's different levels of the spirit world, aren't there? Like what
yeah,
Jesus the teacher taught, in my Father's house are many mansions. And if you study the Puranas, you study different Vedas, it
yeah.
talks about there being different lokas or worlds, different
Yes, yes, yes,
and
yes.
based on your consciousness, you end up going to different places. So
Yeah,
uh in the spirit world, what I always teach my students is it's like a skyscraper. So God's at the top floor, and you want to go to the top floor. Now you have different guides or teachers, and they may be in the eighth floor, or the seventh floor, sixth floor, and you have, let's just say, you have a grandmother who's
yeah,
very, very pious. She goes to the temple every day and does puja, and
yeah,
she goes to the third floor, but she's still got some problems. She's on the third floor. And
yeah,
then you have your uncle. He's kind of creepy. He's not really so evolved. He gets angry and yells at people all the time. And he's on the second floor. And then you've got the basement,
yeah.
right? It was really hellish. And
Yeah,
so the higher spirits will work with that. Like you can work on all these different levels, but they orchestrate who comes through, and they vet who comes through. They don't just let anyone come through. And if you're going to have a session with a medium, that session is completely planned out beforehand.
Yeah.
It may
Yeah.
seem very spontaneous as you're working, and it is in one sense, but they have to work through you. So let's say I was your, someone's grandmother, and I was going to work through you. Well, your mentality is a certain way. Your band of spirits who work through, the team that works through, they're specialists at this. They've spent considerable time connecting with you, right? Harmonizing their energy with yours. And how that grandmother well, they're like intermediaries for her. So how the information is presented has a lot to do with, the medium's mind, like what the medium is capable of receiving, how it's going to
Yes.
be worded and everything.
Yeah.
And you're going to find too, like a grandmother, let's say she wanted to communicate. If she's really on the same wavelength as a medium, let's say mentally,
Hmm.
same vibration, it's going
Yeah.
to be really easy for her to come through because it's
Mm.
telepathic. Let's just
Yeah.
say the grandma, oh, I don't want to be around her. I don't like that woman. Well, it's going to be a little bit harder. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
sometimes people, let's say you go to a medium and your dad, or your deceased husband or whoever comes through. Well, if it's a good connection, chances are that same spirit will be able to come through that medium even more. And remember, the practice makes perfect. So the more someone
Yes.
uh, does this in the spirit world, and there's classes in the spirit world for this, you learn how to do it. I've sometimes will be doing sessions with people, and I'm aware of my peripheral vision. People like there from the spirit world watching what's going on. They're not my guys, nothing to
Mm.
do with me, and they're not connected to who I'm working with. But I'm aware that they're observing, and why? Because their loved ones in the physical world are going to be going to a medium, and they're learning how to come through. So
Yeah.
they've even talked about that when they come through sometimes, how they rehearse it, how they practice it. They go to classes, which is pretty neat. So, but if the spirit is harmonious with the medium, it's going to work well. Also, if you go to a medium and you really can relate to the medium, right? You think the chemistry's there. It's going to work a lot better than you go to someone who's you just don't resonate with them.
Absolutely.
So all of this is very personal. It's
Mm.
not like, oh, one medium is better than the other medium and they're so superior. That's just stupid.
Yeah.
And you'd get that a lot. One of my friends, this one, I can think of one international medium, and she's in the UK, but she was just saying, in the UK, when she was studying, this is going back many decades, it was like sporting competition. I mean, they would all be competing. Oh, I've got 7 pieces of evidence. Oh, well, I have 14 pieces of evidence.
Oh my God.
And then they're all like cutting each other. It's really stupid. I mean, this is not what it's about, but you get that
Same.
kind of mentality.
Yeah.
I'm the best of the best. And,
Uh,
you know,
Again, the ego talking then.
yeah, no, but it's like that. Oh, I'm so distinguished. I'm such a great medium. And really, it's not about that at all, you know? So
I agree. I agree. It's not
it's
about
not a
that.
sport. You're not competing against other people. Sometimes in a class or workshops, people are studying mediumship, and it's just like they want to, be like stepping on each other's heads to get on top of each other. And it's everybody can be a really good medium. It's
Yeah.
different. We have different spiritual gifts, and the idea is to share and it's to help. And
Yes.
it's not about, oh, this person's mediumship was better than another's, and that's just not. That's the wrong kind of mentality to have.
Absolutely. I agree there. I agree there with you.
Um,
Okay. And I have been thinking that I know that you have trained so many people, in so many countries um, for mediumship. So, what are the qualities do you think a person should have to really be a great medium or an exceptional medium? What are the
well, 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 it's like anything. I mean, the big things you need patience, perseverance, and persistence, and you have to be really dedicated to it. So, like, let's say someone really wants to be a good musician or a good artist,
yeah,
or they maybe they play a certain sport or athletic activity. So you have to work at it all the time. You have to practice all the time. It's not a retirement hobby. And I remember going to these spiritualist churches and centers, and everyone would be like really elderly there. They'd all be old, middle aged was the youngest, and so I was like younger than everyone else. I still am sometimes, and it'd be like a retirement hobby for people.
Uh,
You know,
yes.
like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And it's like really inexpensive, some of these places. You know, it's just
Yeah.
because it's nonprofit, you know, it's not to make up money or anything. So why not? You know, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. However, if you really want to be good at this,
Mm.
even if you know, maybe you've had a lot of past lives where you've worked with mediumship before and you come in karmically with those types of abilities, you still need to like hone it. It's like if we go like with, let's say with European art back in the Renaissance, you have some masters. Well, they apprenticed with people for years. And they're practicing 12 hours a day or something. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like they just, oh, you know, as I said, go to the Saturday workshop and it's like microwavable mediumship. It's instantaneous. It's not like
Yes.
that. It's one of these things where, so you have to be really dedicated and really genuinely want to grow. And I mean, along with it, I mean, if you're just doing it because, oh, I want to be really, I want to, I don't know, feel good about myself and be superior to other people or like an ego type of thing, that's not really good either. I mean, you really want to, ideally, you're going to have a desire to actually help others and, you know, as a healer and you care about other people.
Yeah. You need to
That's what's
have that
really,
passion, you can say, a deep passion.
yeah, yeah, and to stick with it because it doesn't happen overnight. Even if someone, I mean, sometimes, like, for example, with classes, I mean, most people, they're very analytical, so it takes a while. It's not instant, you know, it's sort of gradual. But occasionally, you know, you'll get someone, they come to a class or workshop, and they're really, really, really open. You know, they don't have a lot of blocks. Maybe they work as an artist or they're a musician. And when you're an artist or a musician, you're using the intuitive power of your mind anyway. So there tends, with people like that, with that kind of background, there tends not to be the same kind of blocks
Mm.
as you'd find with someone, especially engineers.
Ah,
And, you know, have to analyze everything, which is good because you don't want the wings of the airplane to fall off, do you? You know, you need people who
yeah.
really are exact. However, you get someone like that, you know, they're really, 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 really open and they come to a class. Well, they don't know how to use it. It takes years to learn how to discipline this stuff, how to work with it, how to control your own vibration. And it doesn't happen overnight. So you have people
Yes.
out there, you know, they're just open or they read a few books or they go to a class or two, and then they're off doing readings,
Exactly.
charging money. And it reminds me of these places in the States, I mean, where you can go and you can just buy your high school degree or you can get your PhD. That's the
Right.
other thing too. You can go to these places, you take the class for a day, and then you can call yourself doctor at the end of it. And then they put like doctor on their business card or on their certificate on their wall. So that doesn't really mean anything, but you know, but people are very impressed with their credentials.
Yeah. I think passion has to be combined with, like you said, patience, practice, and persistence.
Yeah, and
Right?
that's like, you know, decades. I mean, you're going to be working it all the time. You know, you're on one plateau, then gradually you go to the next, and you can't buy this. You can't make it happen. You have to allow it to happen, and and they're not going to really give you anything that you're actually not ready for. That's the other thing.
Yeah. And
But
I
I love
have,
mediumship. It's so good, you know.
it is, it
It's
is. I also, I'm very deeply connected, although my journey started with the loss, but yes, uh, same here. I love mediumship and I love to do it every day
well,
whenever
you
I
have a
can.
really nice energy. You
Oh,
seem like a really cool person. See, I could hang out with you. You're very nice.
yeah, then you should plan an India trip, you know.
Well, you tell me when to come. I'll come to India. You know, you just have to set some stuff up for me. You know, and I'll do it.
That we will discuss and manage. Not a problem. We'll do
But
it.
we can talk
I
about after this.
really love to have you here.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
because I have all these people. Oh, you need to come to because when I was in India the last time I remember I did some work and that was very good. That was in like Bombay. You know, people
Mhm.
are really into it.
I read it in your book. You
Yes.
mentioned it. Yeah. So, okay. I want to know, like, normally people feel that they're not getting through, like some students. Is it just the fear or there are other things that can block their mediumship, especially when they're developing?
Well, I mean, the biggest block that there's a couple things. I mean, one big block that people commonly have, and even when you develop, and as you're
Mhm.
developing more down the road, it's still going to be there. And that's your, like I said earlier, your analytical mind. That
Yes.
doesn't go away. I mean, you need an analytical mind. It's really, really, really important, but it's going to be there. And with some people, it gets in the way a lot.
Mm.
So that can take, depending on the individual, it can take, a while to sort of work through that. But if someone learns to be able to differentiate between the analytical mind and information that's actually coming through, it's going to be really good. I mean, when we get information in our mind from the spirit world, initially, many people aren't able to distinguish. They can't differentiate between what's just something from their own mind and
Mm.
something that's coming through. So that's one area that always needs to be taken care of. And what I always tell people is the more you goof up, the better. Like if you're training, make a lot
Yeah.
of mistakes.
Yeah.
Because remember, it's teamwork and you're working with a spirit team and they're learning how to give you information. So if you don't say anything and you just have the stuff in your head, well, they're not really going to be sure you received it. But if you start getting involved with it too, you're going to block more from coming through. So you have to just be able to say what you're experiencing, whether it's coming in from the spirit world or it's just product of your own mind. It's coming up from your memory bank or your unconscious mind. You just have to be able to say it. And once you do that, you open your mouth, you empty your cup, more can be put in. Um,
Mm.
and so that's one thing. Now the other thing is more psychologically. A lot of people have very low self-esteem. A
Yes.
lot of people don't have confidence in themselves for one reason or another. So, and that's part of why this whole competition, obviously, if someone's ego is involved in this, they're really insecure. Because if
Yeah.
they were secure, they wouldn't have to go about being that way. But in class situations, people can get really easily discouraged when they're learning this. Maybe they say something and and the person who they give it to doesn't understand what they're talking about. They evaluate themselves, they compare themselves to other people, and if they end up not sticking with it and everything. And then so part of what's going to happen ideally is one is going to learn to trust the spirit world 1000%, not 100%, but 1000%. And also really end up trusting themselves a lot more. Now, one of the things with mediums too, we were talking about like qualities of mediums. I mean, it is very good if you're giving and you really want to share, you really want to help people and everything, but you have to have perseverance. You'll see a lot of people who do work at this. They have a strong ego. I don't mean it doesn't have to be the kind of ego that's, oh, I'm better than other people, that type of thing, but a strong sense of self and believing in themselves. That's something different from
Yeah.
falsely the false ego type thing.
Yeah.
So if you really have a lot of strong determination, you're going to stick with it. So
Yes.
even if you don't get encouragement,
Mm.
you might have some failures or things that don't work the right way, but really, all those things they're not really failures. They're opportunities to learn. Let's
Yes.
say you say something that's the wrong way. Well, the people working with you in the spirit world, your helpers, will adjust things. They'll approach it differently and everything. And so you can learn, you're going to learn from your mistakes, and you're only going to improve if you put the energy into it. That's the whole thing. But sometimes, again, people can get really discouraged. And so any type of self-help work, therapeutically or things that one can do,
Mm.
self-help wise, psychologically, emotionally, that can also really help someone
Yes.
develop better appreciation or love, respect for self, and consequently feel better about the process. I always tell people, and I use the word process again, to put emphasis on the process, not the end result.
Mm.
Enjoy the process, learn from that, as opposed
Mm.
to, oh, I've got to get this. It has to be this,
Yes.
which tends to be, unfortunately, the way people approach. Oh, I want to get this evidence. I have to get
Yeah.
this. And
Exactly.
that might happen, but we allow it to happen. But if you just sort of focus in on the process, the spirits, if necessary, will bring through the information.
Yeah, we need to let it flow to us.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. And I see, Steve, a lot of people, when they're developing, even sometimes developed ones also, that they always ask me that how can we, is it me or my mind talking, or they're not able to accept that they're actually receiving.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to such people?
Well, some of what I said earlier, what one needs to be able to do is just say what's in their head, whether
Yes.
it's them, whether it's something from the spirits or not. Because in the beginning, some of the information you're not going to know at all. You're not really going to be able to differentiate it. But if you don't say something, well, they're not going to give you anything. They're not going to be able to give you anything more because you're going to be blocking it. So it's really important. There is a subtle difference. I mean, sometimes they'll really put the thoughts really strong in your head. And one way of being able to tell the difference, let's say someone's sitting there, they're meditating in the silence
Hmm.
and they have an image in their head and
Yeah.
they're not really sure. And then they just start thinking about some other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the spirits, if it's coming in from the spirit, they'll keep on giving you that same image. They'll
Exactly.
keep on giving it to you till you say something. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, it'll come back.
Hmm.
And when they say it, then they can give you more. When you say it, they can give you more. Now the way it works is they're experimenting. They're giving you different things and seeing if you notice it. If you don't say anything, they're not really going to be sure if you even noticed it. And sometimes, initially, when they first work with people, it'd be just like testing out a radio to see if it works. You might just send sort of like a nonsense message over it to see if the person at the other end receives
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's important when someone's sitting for development to share usually in the class, we'll go around and everyone will share what they've experienced, to share that stuff. Maybe they just felt some temperature variations around them, or they see a color in their mind, or they have an idea that comes into there. Just say that.
Yeah.
Now, some of it's going to definitely just be stuff from your own mind. However, that's okay because they work through your mind. Now, there is a very subtle difference
Hmm.
between, let's say, a clairvoyant image and
Yeah.
something that's just a product of your own mind. And that's something which one will learn to differentiate.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah. There's a subtle difference, and I think over the time when you keep practicing, then it becomes more clearer. That's what
Yeah,
I.
no, that's exactly it. And the other thing is, if you're working with let's say you're working with others in a group, well, you're going to get feedback. Who people will be able to validate, or they're going to be able to give you feedback. Say, oh, I could really recognize what you were describing. That was my mother. She's in the spirit world. She passed away last year, or I don't know. I'm not really sure what you were talking about. Or this part of it, I really understood. This other part didn't make sense, but I'll look into it more. You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I teach my students, and I think this is very important, is I always say things as a statement.
Hmm.
Just like if you just want to say things as a statement, and don't ask all these questions.
Yeah.
So, oh, do you know a man in the spirit world who likes to drink water? Why am I seeing the letter E? Who
Yeah.
can place this? And sometimes you'll see these mediums. They'll ask all these questions. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen this before? Does anybody know someone who
Yeah.
passed with a heart attack? Well, there's
Yeah.
probably a lot of people.
Yeah.
So the thing is you have to trust the spirit world 1,000% and just give up what you're getting. And you don't need, as a medium, you don't need to know anything about the person you're working with. And I always tell people, if you're having a session, and this is in class too, don't feed the medium. Just like you go to the zoo, they have these big signs, do not feed the animals. So
Yeah.
you don't want to feed the medium. But what you'll see, sometimes you'll see this with like mediums on TV or something. I don't watch TV, but they'll just be like asking all these questions, and then the people tell them all this stuff. So if someone's very skeptic, what are they going to think?
Mhm.
They're going to conclude that this medium is fishing for information.
Correct.
And you don't need to know anything.
Yeah.
Now in the UK with their training, they place a lot of emphasis on we got to demonstrate this. We've got to have it validated in front of everyone to prove to people survival. So they'll get responses. Now, when someone responds, you've got the voice vibration that strengthens the connection, and that's kind of cool. The problem with that is it can be very long and drawn out,
Yeah.
and it gets into often the person saying all this stuff unnecessarily, and the medium doesn't need to know all of that. And often the mediums will word that in a way that it's not just saying that just, do you understand this or does this make sense? It becomes more like a question, you know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm talking? You've
Yeah.
probably seen.
I get it.
So so I don't work that way. I don't teach my students to work. I'm not saying there's better or worse. It's just what it is. But it's good to say things as a statement. Now, if someone really doesn't understand something, they can say, "Well, I'm not really sure about this," or "Can you give me more?"
Hmm.
And if someone says, for example, if you're a medium working, someone might say, "Nope, nope, that's not true." Well, that's not necessarily the best approach as a recipient,
Yeah.
because oftentimes someone can't place something or they don't recognize something. There's a lot of different reasons for that.
Hmm.
So it doesn't mean the medium's wrong.
Yeah.
Now, as a medium, obviously a medium can get their mind involved in the way that they add things to it, or they can leave parts out, they can translate or interpret it the wrong way. But that's where the training comes in. You have to have very good ethics, but the training has to be there. And that, if it's good training, it's going to prevent or certainly minimize error from taking place. So you have to trust the spirit world as a medium. Even if someone says, no, that's the worst reading I've ever had in my life, you have to trust what the spirits are bringing you more than that person in front of you.
Yeah.
That doesn't invalidate. I mean, they genuinely might not understand, but on the other hand, then they go talk to their husband when they get home. Oh, that was my stepfather coming through. You either, or they recollect it at a later, a week later. You don't know the big picture. Our job as mediums is to be intermediaries, to be
Yes.
honest with what we're doing, ethical, give out what we're getting as we're getting it, not to the best of our ability. Now, we don't need to know anything about the person. And someone who lacks confidence, oh, am I right? I've got to make sure that I'm right. And I've got to, and like literally like just, it gets into all this question asking. And then, once someone gives you a response, what can happen with someone is that as a medium, they'll just get their minds involved and they'll change stuff around to suit whatever the person said.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not what you want to do. Does that make
Exactly.
sense?
Yes, it does. It does. I feel this is the right way for any medium. Whatever is coming, just don't hold back and just let it flow and give it out like that. Because we may not understand what is there, but I'm sure that sitter will understand, sometime that what is coming through.
Well, it's the spirit world sets the agenda, and that agenda sometimes is different, can be vastly different, greatly different than what the recipient wants or what they expect.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not always going to be what they want to hear. It's the spirit world sees the big picture, and as a medium, our job is just to be the intermediary and bring it through.
yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
to the best of our ability, with no error, being able to say it the right way in a nice way and everything. But people want things a certain, especially if they're paying money. I go to you and you're what is it, like $500 American for the 15 minutes or whatever, because you're a TV medium and you're famous, and I want to hear this. I want to hear from whoever it is in the spirit world, and you bring through somebody else.
Yeah,
And I've spent all this money, I want my money back
correct,
now. And
correct.
you're really honest, there's nothing wrong, It's,
I totally agree there. Okay, Steve, I want to know one thing. You've done like so many readings, you've taught so many students. Is there any one incident which really stuck to you when you connected to the spirit? That what is the best experience connecting to spirit you felt? Just for my viewers.
yeah, I don't know if there's like a best experience. I mean, it's kind of
I mean,
interesting because,
something that still is in your memory.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Okay, so when I work, my analytical mind's there, and I put that out of the way,
Yeah.
and I just say the stuff, and I
Yes.
don't really retain it as a whole. So, like, let's say
Exactly.
at the end of the session, sometimes I'll sort of vaguely remember parts of it,
Yeah.
but I've trained myself not to because you don't want to get yourself involved in it. You know, that's when you can have error because you start changing stuff around and
Yeah.
everything. Now, sometimes, though, on the other hand, there's information that comes through that's kind of weird or unusual or different.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
will remember things like that only because, uh, as a teacher, because I'm really into my focus is really on the healing and also the teaching mediumship.
Yeah.
So when I'm teaching, it's like an anecdote. You know, I can share, oh, well, this happened. You know, I mean, I could tell you different, things that are, and it's one of those types of things where, uh, those types of things stand out and everything. But
Yeah.
usually I just literally, I don't really remember all this stuff,
Likewise.
and it
Yes.
might be really awesome, like really help the people, or maybe it was really specific or those
Yeah.
types of things. But, I mean, I could tell you different weird things that, the spirits have,
Yeah. Maybe
I think in my books, I'll mention some things like that too.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
So
each time you work, I mean, it's like a learning experience, and so much of it has to also do every time you work on like the energy that's there. The person brings in the energy. There's a psychic atmosphere.
mm,
Some sessions might be really strong. Maybe the need is really, really pretty, pretty big there, or just the vibrations are really strong because of what they bring in, the recipient. And then other times it can be a lot more of a challenge. You can certainly have people who show up who they want things a certain way. The energy isn't quite as good as what it could be,
yes.
which is going to affect the results. It's like an
Yes.
experiment every time you do this.
Yeah. Every reading is different that way. I mean, every spirit is different how they connect. So yes.
But I really love mediumship. I love working with it. I'm really into the teaching aspect of it.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's why I want to bring you in. Sometime when you can.
Oh well, we can talk about that. I mean, I'll come during. I was just thinking right now, Kartik would be very good for me to come around that time in the autumn.
Ah,
That's the
okay.
autumn here.
Yeah, I know. I know. This time. Yes.
Yeah,
So,
that would be very good. But we can talk about that, because I'd
yeah.
have to, you know,
Maybe someday
because I'll.
we can also learn firsthand from you because
Yeah,
learning.
no, I'll come if you can set up, some work because that would help pay my expenses, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
very good.
That we can
So
work out. Yeah, sometime
that would
soon.
be.
Let's see.
Believe me, I'll be on the plane tomorrow.
I love that. Okay, so Steve, really, thank you so much for sparing your time for us, and it has been really enlightening. A lot of things.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say I'm really into the teaching aspect, and I have a lot of online courses, this type of thing that go
Okay.
on. I also do things in person all over
Okay.
the place.
Yes,
Now, if
that
you're in
is.
India, it might be hard to fly to other places, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'll certainly would come to India. I have my books. My first book is Mediumship
Yes.
Mastery,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
on
Yes.
Amazon. This has been out over 10 years now, and that's
Yeah.
bestseller. And then my second book, Mediumship
Yes.
Mastery 2,
Yes.
Advanced Techniques That Work. And I think
Yes.
this is really cool. And
Yeah.
then my latest book is Spiritual Mediumship. There's a whole chapter on India in here.
Yes. This one I need to get. So
Yeah,
we.
this is really good. And this is like my memoir, but it's all pretty much oriented toward teaching.
Okay.
So you'd learn a lot in terms about the development and stuff too.
I think
So
you shared with me a little bit, or I read it somewhere. Some little bit I have read about this book, but not complete. I don't have the book with me. But
yeah, this has been out like the last year now, but
okay, okay. I will
so
put the links to these for Indian where to buy Indian
yeah, and
event.
I have a YouTube. I haven't really put any new videos on, but I do have like a YouTube channel too for like teaching, which is mainly
Yeah.
stuff, in terms of teaching.
Oh, you have
And
different. I have one channel. I know I connected to. I see.
there's just one of my own. I might be in other channels too with interviews or
Oh,
things
okay.
like that. But yeah, I have my own channel. If you look for my name, Steve Herman
Yes.
and
I will
Stephen
put
Herman.
all the links so that
Yeah,
Anybody who wants to connect with you can do so. And yes, it is lovely. I mean, it is really, it's been a good session. I mean, a good,
Well, I really like your energy. I can really resonate. I mean, I like Indians anyway, just in general. But
lovely.
I like I like your energy a lot. And I mean, obviously you're intelligent, you're educated, and you're trying to reach people and help people with this. So that's what's needed. You
Yeah,
know, can you imagine when you're an elderly lady and you're still doing this and you'll have all these students, you know, you'll be working with them.
I
You know,
would.
it's really, 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 really good.
Yeah,
So it's obviously karmically, you know, you're supposed to be doing this, which is why you're doing it. It's
yes.
really nice.
Yes, I agree on that. And thank you so much. Steve, really, maybe in future also we will have certain sessions if you have time. We can learn more and like
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm happy to. Any way I can help, you know, just get hold of me.
lovely, lovely. I will look forward to that already. So thank you so much for coming today. Thank you. And I hope to connect soon again with you.
Me too. I'm all excited. I'm like, yeah.
All right. Goodbye then.
All right.
Namaste.